The city has finally settled into a low, steady hum. Rain is tapping against the glass of your car window, rhythmic and dull, washing away the noise of the day. In your lap, a heavy file folder sits open. Inside are the cold details of the Zodiac case, the quiet mystery of a man found on an Australian beach, and the empty frames of a museum long after closing time. Most people think crime is loud, sirens and shouting. But you know the truth. Real investigation is quiet. It is the sound of a pen scratching on paper, the rustle of old evidence bags, and the long, slow wait for answers that might never come. So lean back, let your eyes get heavy, and join me, the sleepless detective, as we simply sort through the boxes that time forgot. Turn the page. The first document is yellowed with age, dated December 20th, 1968. The ink is faded, but the location is clear. Lake Herman Road. You are not in a warm bed anymore. You are in a car, parked on a gravel turnout on the outskirts of Benicia, California. It is late, it is dark, and it is freezing. The temperature has dropped to 22 degrees, a bone-chilling cold that seeps through the metal of the car door and settles into the upholstery. Most people imagine California as a land of perpetual sunshine, but here, on this lonely stretch of road connecting two small towns, the night is heavy. There are no street lights. The only illumination comes from the stars. And tonight, even they are cold and distant. Imagine sitting in that car. You have turned the engine off to save gas, or perhaps just to listen to the silence. The heater ticks as it cools down. The leather of the seats creaks, shifting your weight. This is a lover's lane, a place teenagers go to be alone, to whisper secrets in the dark. But isolation is a double-edged sword. The privacy you seek is the same privacy that blinds you. On this night, the darkness is absolute. To your left, the rolling hills are just black shapes against a charcoal sky. To your right, the ground drops away. You are waiting. Maybe you are waiting for a friend. Maybe you are just waiting for the world to stop spinning for a moment. Time moves differently when you are parked in the dark. A minute feels like an hour. Every rustle of dry grass in the wind sounds like a footstep. You check your watch. The radium dial glows faintly green. It is just past 11 at night. David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen were parked here. They were young, 17 and 16 years old. They were just two kids trying to find a quiet corner in a loud world. They likely heard the gravel crunch before they saw the headlights. That is how it happens on these back roads. Sound travels for miles, the slow, heavy roll of tires on stones. A car pulls in beside you. You don't think much of it. Another couple seeking privacy, you assume. You turn to look, expecting a wave or a nod. Instead, you see nothing but the blinding white beam of headlights reflecting in your rearview mirror. The other car stops. The engine idles, a low rumble that vibrates through the chassis of your own vehicle. The door opens, and then the footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, crunching on the frost-covered ground. This is the moment the atmosphere shifts. The air in the car suddenly feels too thin. The silence of the lake is no longer peaceful. It is expectant. The man who steps out of the darkness is not a monster in a movie. He is just a shadow, a silhouette against the high beams. He walks to the passenger side. He does not yell. He does not make a scene. He simply begins the work of violence with a cold efficiency that suggests he has rehearsed this moment in his mind 1,000 times. The shots that rang out that night were loud, shattering the stillness of the valley, but they were brief. The echoes faded quickly, absorbed by the dry winter hills. And then the silence returned. The car door slammed. The engine revved. The tires spun on the gravel, spraying stones as the shadow drove away, leaving the two teenagers alone in the freezing cold. When the police arrived later, the scene was eerily calm. The frost had begun to settle on the windows of the station wagon. The only sound was the wind moving through the cow pastures. This is the reality of the crime scene. It is not chaotic. It is static. It is a frozen tableau of a moment where everything went wrong, preserved in the icy air of a December night. The file tells us this was the beginning, the start of the terror. But looking at the photos of the turnout, just a patch of dirt by the side of the road, it looks so mundane. That is the deception of the Zodiac case. It happened in places that look like nowhere. Driveways, parks, places you pass every day without looking twice. The horror is not in the location, but in the randomness. The killer did not know them. He did not care who they were. To him, they were just opportunities. But the silence of the lake was eventually broken, not just by noise, but by ink on a page. Turn the file over. The next section is thicker. It is filled with photocopies of letters, envelopes, and strange, grid-like drawings. This is where the case shifts from a series of roadside tragedies to a psychological game. Most criminals want to hide. They operate in the shadows and pray they are never found. But this one, he wanted to speak. He wanted an audience. Imagine the sound of a felt-tip pen moving across paper. It is a soft, scratching sound. Squeaky. Permanent. The writer is sitting at a desk, perhaps in a basement, perhaps in a kitchen while his family sleeps upstairs. He is calm. He is careful. He chooses his words not for clarity, but for effect. He calls himself Zodiac, a name plucked from the stars, or perhaps from the brand of a watch. It doesn't matter. To him, it sounds powerful. He writes to the newspapers, the San Francisco Chronicle, the Vallejo Times-Herald, the San Francisco Examiner, 3 letters sent almost simultaneously. He demands they be printed on the front page. If they are not, he threatens to kill again. It is a tantrum thrown in ink, a desperate need for validation. But look closely at the letters. The handwriting is messy, almost childish. The lines slant downward. The spelling is atrocious. He writes Christmas with 2 S's. He misspells dangerous? Is it a disguise? Is he pretending to be uneducated to throw the police off? Or is this the true measure of the man? A chaotic mind trying to impose order on a world he doesn't understand? Then, there are the ciphers. The 408 character puzzle. It looks like a wall of nonsense. Greek symbols, Morse code, Navy semaphore, weather symbols. It is a collage of confusion. Imagine sitting down to solve it. It is 1969. There are no computers to run algorithms. There is no artificial intelligence to scan the patterns. There is only you, a pencil, and a stack of paper. You look for patterns. The letter E is the most common letter in the English language. So you count the symbols. Which one appears the most? Is it the triangle? The backward K? You try to substitute them. You write E over every triangle. Then you look at the letters next to it. T, H, E, V. It works. A small victory. But then the pattern breaks. The symbol changes. He is using different symbols for the same letter to trick you. It is a tedious, grinding process. It requires a quiet room and infinite patience. The man who eventually solved the first cipher was not a detective. He was a high school teacher from Salinas. He and his wife sat at their kitchen table, drinking coffee, staring at the grid until their eyes watered. They worked through the weekend, listening to the clock on the wall tick away the seconds. It was a puzzle, purely intellectual. And when they finally cracked it, when the letters fell into place and the message revealed itself, it was almost disappointing. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't a roadmap to his location. It was a rambling monologue about hunting humans because they are the most dangerous animal. It was the writing of a man who watched too many movies and read too many comic books. The brilliance of the code hid the banality of the mind behind it. You realize, looking at the decoded text, that the monster isn't a genius. He is just a sad, lonely man with a god complex. But there is something hypnotic about the ciphers. Even now, decades later, people stare at them. The 340 cipher, which remained unsolved for over 50 years, stood as a monument to his arrogance. It sat in evidence lockers, a block of gibberish that refused to speak. It taunted mathematicians and cryptologists. It became a symbol of the case itself, messy, complicated, and stubbornly silent. Rub your thumb over the photocopy of the letter. You can almost feel the texture of the original paper. Cheap, thin, purchased at a drugstore for a few cents. The envelope was sealed with a stamp of George Washington. Mundane details. He licked that stamp. He pressed his hand against that paper. He walked to a blue mailbox on a street corner in San Francisco, dropped it in the slot, and listened to it slide down into the darkness. Clack. And then he walked away, blending back into the crowd, a ghost in a windbreaker. While the public was obsessed with the puzzle, the police were drowning in a much more mundane problem. Shuffle the papers. The sound is dry and crisp. We are moving away from the killer's mind and into the station house. The year is 1969. The air conditioning is broken, or maybe it just wasn't installed yet. The room smells of stale tobacco, carbon paper, and nervous sweat. This is the Bureaucratic Maze. In movies, police stations are high-tech command centers, giant screens, digital databases, instant communication. But you are looking at the reality of the late 60s. It is a world of analog limitations. Information does not flow at the speed of light. It flows at the speed of a typed report carried down a hallway by a tired clerk. The Zodiac killed in Benicia. He killed in Vallejo. He killed in Napa. He killed in San Francisco. 4 different jurisdictions, 4 different chiefs who didn't always like each other. Imagine the frustration. A detective in Vallejo finds a clue, a specific type of boot print, a Wing Walker military boot size 10.5. He types it up on a report. He files it in a cabinet in his office. 30 miles away, a detective in San Francisco is looking for a suspect. He doesn't know about the boot print. He can't Google it. He can't log in to a shared server. Unless someone picks up a telephone and physically calls him or mails him a carbon copy of the report, That information stays locked in a metal drawer in Vallejo. The killer moves freely across invisible lines on a map, but the information stops at the border. The sheer volume of paper is staggering. After the letters were published, the tips started coming in. Everyone had a neighbor who acted strange. Everyone had a cousin who owned a gun. Everyone saw a car that looked suspicious. Thousands of names, thousands of phone calls. Each one had to be written down on an index card. Name, address, reason for suspicion. Picture a room filled with filing cabinets, row after row of beige metal, drawers sliding open with a heavy metallic rolling sound. Shh, clunk. Inside are thousands of index cards. Detectives spend their days flipping through them. Flip, flip, flip. Looking for a connection. Looking for a name that appears twice. It is mind-numbing work. Your eyes blur. Your fingers get stained with ink. You drink coffee that has been sitting on the burner for 4 hours just to stay awake. And the mistakes, the heartbreaking mistakes. After the murder of Paul Stein, the taxi driver in San Francisco, a patrol car actually spotted a man walking away from the scene. A white man, heavy build, glasses. But the dispatcher had made an error. The description went out over the radio as a black male. The officers slowed down, looked at the white man walking alone in the fog, and kept driving. They were looking for someone else. The man they passed was likely the Zodiac. He watched the police cruiser roll by. He probably held his breath, his heart hammering against his ribs. And then he watched the taillights fade into the mist. A simple miscommunication, a slip of the tongue on a radio frequency. That was the difference between catching a serial killer and 50 years of mystery. It wasn't a grand conspiracy. It was just human error amplified by the fog and the fatigue of the night shift. The investigation wasn't a high-speed chase. It was a slow, grinding trudge through mud. It was detectives driving from town to town, carrying boxes of files, trying to piece together a puzzle where half the pieces were in a different box in a different city. It is exhausting just to think about it. The weight of all that paper, the weight of all those wasted hours. In that mountain of paperwork, one name kept rising to the top, only to sink back down again. Turn the page. There is a photograph clipped to the top of this file. A man's face. He is heavy-set, balding. He wears thick-rimmed glasses that magnify his eyes. He looks like a teacher or a neighbor who complains about your lawn. Ordinary, unremarkable. His name is Arthur Leigh Allen. For the detectives who worked the case, Allen was the white whale. He was the suspect who checked every box until he didn't. Close your eyes and picture the interrogation room. It is small, soundproofed with acoustic tiles, a single table, 3 chairs, a mirror on the wall that everyone knows is one-way glass. Allen sits there. He is calm, almost too calm. He wears a watch on his wrist. The detectives look at it. It is a Zodiac brand Seawolf watch. The symbol on the face is a crosshair, a circle with a cross through it. The exact same symbol the killer draws on his letters. The detectives exchange a glance. It feels too easy. It feels like the universe is finally handing them the answer. They ask him about the day of the Lake Berryessa attack. He says he was there. He admits it. He says he wanted to go scuba diving. But the bloody knife? The hood? No, he knows nothing about that. They ask him about the book The Most Dangerous Game, the story about hunting humans that the Zodiac quoted. Alan says he read it. It made a big impression on him. It is maddening. He waves the clues in their faces like flags. He has the same boot size, 10.5. He lived near the victims. He even reportedly told a friend years earlier that he wanted to kill couples and call himself Zodiac. It is all there. You can feel the handcuffs clicking into place. You can feel the case closing. But looking at a crime is like looking through a kaleidoscope. Turn the tube just a fraction of an inch and the pattern changes completely. The handwriting experts analyze Alan's writing. They compare it to the letters, shake of the head. It's not a match, not even close. They check his fingerprints against a bloody print found on the taxicab. No match. They check his DNA, decades later, against saliva on the stamps. No match. This is the torture of the circumstantial case. It looks like a duck. It quacks like a duck. But biologically, it is a cat. How can one man be so perfect for the crime and yet physically completely different from the evidence? Was he a genius who asked someone else to write the letters? Did he wear false fingertips? Or was he just an unlucky man who happened to be weird, who happened to wear the wrong watch, and who happened to love the attention? Imagine being the detective who is certain, absolutely certain, that Alan is the guy. You watch him walk out of the station. You watch him drive away. You know he did it. You can feel it in your gut. But the law doesn't care about your gut. The law cares about fingerprints. And so the file stays open. Alan dies of a heart attack years later, taking his secrets, if he had any, to the grave. The frustration is a physical weight. It sits in the chest. It keeps you awake at night. You replay the interview. You replay the timeline. You try to force the pieces to fit, but you can't jam a square peg into a round hole, no matter how hard you push. Sometimes the killer isn't a ghost in the machine, but a man sitting quietly on a beach thousands of miles away. Let's leave the cold fog of San Francisco. Let your mind drift. Fly over the Pacific Ocean, over the endless blue water, down to the southern coast of Australia. The year is 1948. It is December, but in Australia, that means it is summer. The air is warm. The ocean breeze is salty and thick. We are on Somerton Beach, near Adelaide. It is a beautiful evening. Couples are walking along the sand. The sun is setting, painting the water in shades of gold and violet. You are walking along the seawall. The sound of the waves is hypnotic. Wash in, wash out. Rhythmic, eternal. You see a man lying on the sand. His head is resting against the seawall. His legs are crossed at the ankles. He looks peaceful, relaxed. He is wearing a suit and tie, which is odd for the beach, but perhaps he is just resting after work. He lifts his arm lazily, as if to smoke a cigarette, and then lets it drop. You assume he is sleeping. You keep walking. The tide comes in, the tide goes out. The next morning, he is still there. The same position, the same suit, but now the flies are buzzing. The man is dead. This is the case of the Somerton Man, also known as the Tamam Shud case. And if you thought the Zodiac was baffling, this file will make you question the nature of identity itself. The police arrive. They search the body. No wallet, no identification, no keys. But it gets stranger. The labels have been carefully cut out of all his clothes, his shirt, his pants, even his underwear. Someone went to great lengths to ensure this man had no name. They search his pockets. They find a half-smoked cigarette, a comb, a pack of chewing gum, and a train ticket that was never used. It is the inventory of a ghost. But there is one thing, a tiny discovery that turns a John Doe case into a legend. In a hidden pocket, sewn into the waistband of his trousers, they find a scrap of paper. It is small, rolled up tightly. On it are 2 words, printed in a fancy font, Tamam Shud. It is Persian. It means it is finished or the end. The police are baffled. They bring in librarians. They discover the phrase comes from a book of poetry, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. It is a poem about living life to the fullest because death is inevitable. A book is found nearby, tossed into the back seat of an unlocked car. The last page is torn out. The scrap of paper fits perfectly, but the mystery deepens. On the back of the book, there is a faint cipher, a string of letters that look like a code, and a phone number. The number belongs to a nurse who lives just down the street from where the body was found. The police visit her. She acts strange. She looks at the plaster cast of the dead man's face and almost faints, but she denies knowing him. She says she gave a copy of the book to a man years ago, but that man is still alive. Who was he? A spy? A lover? A traveler who simply wanted to disappear? For decades, he was just the Somerton man, a face on a bust, a body in a grave marked unknown. The quiet of the beach kept his secret. The waves washed away his footprints. It is a gentle mystery. There is no violence visible on the body, no gunshot, no knife wound, just a man who sat down by the ocean and let the world stop. Was it poison? Probably, but a poison that disappeared without a trace. It is the perfect exit, to simply cease to exist while the sun sets over the ocean. He was a man with no name, but sometimes having a name doesn't make the disappearance any less baffling. Turn the page again. The paper here is crisp, relatively modern. The date is November 24th, 1971. We are going up, 30,000 feet up, into the night sky over the Pacific Northwest. Most crimes happen on the ground. They are messy and gritty. But this crime was elegant. It happened in the sanitized, pressurized tube of a Boeing 727. The air inside a plane is recycled, dry, and cool. The hum of the engines is a constant white noise, a roar that drowns out conversations. A man sits in seat 18E. He is dressed in a dark suit, a white shirt, and a black tie with a mother-of-pearl tie clip. He orders a bourbon and soda. He lights a cigarette. In 1971, you could smoke on planes. Imagine the blue haze drifting up toward the reading lights. The man is polite. He is calm. He wears dark sunglasses, even though it is night. He passes a note to the flight attendant. She thinks he is hitting on her. She puts it in her pocket without looking. The man leans forward. His voice is low, smooth. "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb. This is D.B. Cooper, the name the press gave him, the man who pulled off the only unsolved air piracy in American history. And he did it without raising his voice." He opened a briefcase to show red cylinders and wires. He demanded $200,000 and 4 parachutes. He didn't scream. He didn't wave a gun around. He ordered another bourbon. He paid his tab. He even insisted the flight attendants keep the change. The plane lands in Seattle. The passengers are released. They don't even know they were hostages. The money is brought on board. The parachutes are delivered. The plane takes off again, heading south toward Mexico. It is a stormy night. Rain is lashing against the fuselage. The wind is howling. Cooper sends the crew to the cockpit. He is alone in the cabin. The lights are dimmed. It is just him, the money, and the parachutes. He lowers the rear stairs of the 727. The cabin depressurizes. The air rushes out with a deafening roar. The temperature drops instantly. The wind screams like a banshee. And then he jumps. He steps off the stairs into the black void, into the freezing rain, into the vast forests of Washington State. He has $200,000 strapped to his body. He is wearing a trench coat and loafers, not hiking boots. Loafers. He vanishes. The FBI searches the woods. They use helicopters, dogs, soldiers. They comb every inch of the forest floor. They find nothing. No body, no parachute, no money. It is as if the earth swallowed him whole. Years later, a young boy finding a rotting stash of bills by the Columbia River is the only clue. The money was decaying, returning to the soil. But the man? Did he survive the fall? Did he walk out of the woods and start a new life? Or is he still out there, his bones covered by moss, a part of the forest? Now, there is something strangely peaceful about the idea of the jump, the moment of commitment, stepping away from safety into the absolute unknown, the wind tearing at your clothes, the cold shocking your system, and then falling. Falling through the clouds, falling through the rain, a tiny speck in a massive sky. The forest keeps its secrets, but sometimes the most valuable things are stolen from right under our noses in the city. We are back in the city now. Boston, March 18th, 1990. It is St. Patrick's Day. The city is rowdy. Parties, parades, green beer. But in the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, it is quiet. The museum is a palace, modeled after a Venetian palazzo. It is filled with masterpieces, Rembrandts, Vermeers, Degas. At night, the shadows lengthen in the hallways. The eyes of the portraits seem to follow you. The air smells of old varnish and floor wax. 2 men in police uniforms ring the buzzer at the side door. They say they are responding to a disturbance. The security guard, a young man, maybe bored, maybe naive, buzzes them in. It is the biggest art heist in history, and it was done with duct tape and patience. The thieves tied up the guards in the basement. They told them, "This is a robbery. Don't worry. We'll get you your pay." And then they went shopping. They spent 81 minutes in the museum. 81 minutes. Most robberies take 3 minutes. These men took their time. They walked through the Dutch Room. They approached The Storm on the Sea of Galilee by Rembrandt. It is a masterpiece, invaluable. They didn't take the heavy gold frame. They cut the canvas out. Imagine the sound, the sharp blade slicing through the centuries-old linen. Zip, the tension releasing as the painting comes free. They rolled it up like a poster. They did the same with a Vermeer. They took a Manet. They took sketches. The museum today is a haunted house of art. The frames are still there. By the terms of Mrs. Gardner's will, nothing in the collection can be moved or changed. So the empty frames hang on the walls, rectangles of blank fabric staring back at you. It is a profound kind of emptiness. You stand before the frame where the Rembrandt used to be. You are looking at a loss. You are looking at a ghost. The thieves didn't just steal paint and canvas. They stole the experience of seeing it. They stole the light that Rembrandt captured 300 years ago. Where are the paintings now? Are they in a billionaire's vault in Russia? Are they hidden behind a false wall in a mobster's house in Philadelphia? Or were they destroyed? Did the thieves panic and burn them? The thought makes art lovers shudder. The museum is silent. The courtyard garden is lush and green. The water in the fountain trickles. But the walls whisper of what is missing. The empty frames are more powerful than the paintings ever were. They are a monument to the unsolved. A reminder that beauty is fragile and that sometimes things disappear and never come back. Art can be replaced, or at least remembered, but footprints in the snow eventually melt away. Let's travel back in time, further back, to 1922, to a farm in Bavaria, Germany. The farm is called Hinterkaifeck. It is isolated, surrounded by dark woods. It is winter. Snow covers everything, a thick white blanket that muffles sound. The Gruber family lives there. They are reclusive. They keep to themselves. But in the days leading up to March 31st, strange things begin to happen. Andreas, the father, finds a newspaper from Munich in the house. No one in the family bought it. He finds fresh footprints in the snow, leading out of the forest and to the machine room door. But there are no footprints leading back out. Someone walked to the house and never left. Imagine the feeling. You are in your home. It is night. The wind is howling outside. You hear a creak in the attic. You tell yourself it is just the house settling. Old wood, cold weather. But deep down, you are not alone. The family reported hearing footsteps in the attic. Keys went missing, but they did not call the police. They were stubborn. They stayed. On the evening of March 31st, one by one, the family members were lured to the barn. The mother, the father, the daughter, the granddaughter. They were killed brutally with a mattock, a farm tool. But the killer didn't leave. This is the part that chills the blood. The killer stayed on the farm for days. Neighbors saw smoke rising from the chimney. The cattle were fed. Someone ate the food in the pantry. Someone slept in the beds. The killer lived with the bodies. He tended the farm. He kept the house warm. And then he simply vanished. When the neighbors finally investigated, the house was silent. The snow had begun to melt. The footprints were gone. The case remains one of Germany's most terrifying mysteries. Who was the man in the attic? Was it a neighbor, a vagrant, a secret lover? The farmhouse was eventually torn down. A shrine stands there now. But the story remains. It taps into our primal fear. The fear of the intruder. The fear that our sanctuary is not safe. The fear of the footprints that only go one way. Fear is often about what we can't see, but modern science is finally turning the lights on in the dark rooms of the past. We move from the darkness of the barn to the sterile light of a laboratory. The file on your lap is heavy with old cases, but the last section is different. It is about hope. It is about the slow, mathematical march of science. For decades, the Golden State Killer terrorized California. He was a phantom. He wore masks. He left no fingerprints. He was careful. He seemed unstoppable. Detectives retired without catching him. Victims lived in fear for 40 years. But he made one mistake. He left his DNA. In the 70s and 80s, DNA was science fiction. But he left it there, waiting. A biological time bomb. In 2018, an investigator had an idea. She didn't look for the killer's DNA in a criminal database. She looked in a genealogy database, a website where people upload their DNA to find long-lost cousins or learn about their ancestry. She built a family tree, reverse engineering a human being from a drop of saliva, branch by branch, cousin by cousin, second cousin twice removed. It was a massive logic puzzle. It took months, and then the tree narrowed. It pointed to one man, an old man living in the suburbs of Sacramento, a former police officer, a man who mowed his lawn and roasted roasts on Sundays. They watched him. They waited until he threw away a tissue. They tested it. Match. The arrest was quiet. No shootout, no high-speed chase, just an old man standing in his driveway, looking confused. The monster had aged. He was just a frail senior citizen. The banality of evil revealed by a swab of cotton. This is the new reality. Time is no longer a hiding place. The boxes in the evidence room are waking up. Cold cases are warming up. The science is relentless. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't forget. We solve the puzzles. We file the paperwork, and yet some questions remain permanently unanswered. Why do we care? Why are you listening to this? Why do we find comfort in these dark stories? Perhaps it is because, in a chaotic world, a detective's file represents order. We want to believe that if we just look closely enough, if we just find the right clue, we can make sense of the madness. We want the puzzle to be solved. We want the bad man to be caught. We want the why to be answered. But the true nature of the sleepless detective is accepting that sometimes there is no answer. Sometimes the signal is just noise. Sometimes the man on the beach is just a man on a beach, and that is okay. There is a strange peace in the unanswered question. It reminds us that the world is big and mysterious and largely beyond our control. We are just observers. We are just passengers in the car, watching the rain streak the glass. The file is finished. The papers are shuffled back into order. The edges are aligned. You close the folder. The heavy cardboard cover falls shut with a soft thud. The dust motes dance in the light of the desk lamp. You close the file, turn off the desk lamp, and let the rain wash the city clean. The city outside is quiet now. The cars have stopped running. The lights in the apartment buildings are going out, one by one. The hum of the refrigerator is the only sound in the room. You have walked through the dark places. You have stood on the frozen road. You have sat in the interrogation room. You have walked the silent halls of the museum. And now you are safe. You are here. You are warm. The case is cold. The coffee is cold. And you are finally tired enough to sleep. But sleep is elusive. isn't it? The eyes close, but the mind drifts. The mind stays in the evidence room. You shift in your chair, the leather squeaking softly in the quiet room. The rain is still tapping against the window, a persistent rhythm that refuses to let you go. You realize you aren't ready to leave the station yet. There is another box on the shelf. It sits in the shadows, pushed all the way to the back, covered in a fine layer of gray dust. Reach up, pull it down. Feel the weight of it in your hands. It is heavy, heavier than the others. The cardboard is soft with age. You set it on the desk, and the sound is a dull thud that barely echoes in the empty room. This box does not have a label. It only has a location written in black marker on the side. Isdalen. Let's open it. The first thing you see is a map of Norway. It is rugged, jagged, a coastline that looks like shattered glass. Zoom in. Find the city of Bergen. It is a beautiful city, known for its wooden houses and its constant rain. But just outside the city, there is a valley. The locals call it the Ice Valley. It is a place of rocks, moss, and shadows that stretch long, even in the middle of the day. The date is November 29th, 1970. It is a Sunday. The air is crisp and cold, smelling of pine needles and damp earth. A man and his 2 young daughters are hiking. It is a wholesome family outing. They are climbing up the rocky slope, looking for a spot to have a picnic. The ground is uneven, covered in scree and boulders. One of the daughters spots something in the rocks, a flash of color that doesn't belong in the gray landscape. She runs ahead, and then she stops. They found a woman. But this isn't just a body in the woods. This is a puzzle constructed with the same meticulous care as the Somerton man we discussed earlier. In fact, the similarities are so striking, it makes you wonder if there is a playbook for disappearing that is passed around in the underworld. The woman is lying on her back. Her position is unnatural. She is surrounded by items that seem to have been placed there like a ritual. There are bottles of water, a bottle of liqueur, a silver spoon, and the burnt remains of a passport. The police arrive. The forensic team begins their work, and just like on that Australian beach, they find that the woman has been erased. The labels on her clothes have been cut out. Not ripped, but carefully removed with scissors. Every tag that could tell you where a shirt or a pair of pants was purchased is gone. They check the train station in Bergen. They find 2 suitcases in a luggage locker. The key was found hidden nearby. They open the suitcases, hoping for answers. Instead, they find more questions. Inside the leather bags, there are wigs. Several of them, different styles, different colors. There are glasses with non-prescription lenses used only to change one's appearance. There is money, lots of it, in 5 different currencies: Norwegian kroner, Belgian francs, Swiss francs, British pounds, Deutsche marks. And there is a notepad. Pick it up. The paper is flimsy. The writing is in blue ballpoint pen. It looks like a list. Dates, codes, 3M3, 24M4. It looks like nonsense, but the detectives in Norway, patient and methodical, they crack it. It is a travel log. The letters stand for cities. O for Oslo, B for Bergen, P for Paris. The numbers are dates. This woman traveled all over Europe. She moved like a ghost. She checked into hotels using different names: Fenella Lork, Claudia Tealt, Elizabeth Lienhauers. She changed her identity as easily as she changed her wig. She always requested a room with a balcony. She always marked saleswoman or antiquities collector on the registration cards. But who was she really? Witnesses remembered her. She sat in the hotel dining rooms, eating alone. She smoked cigarettes with a distinctive style. She stared at people, but never spoke to them. One witness said she smelled of garlic, which was unusual in Norway in 1970. Another said she seemed constantly on edge, checking the exits, watching the mirrors. Was she a spy? It was the height of the Cold War. Norway was a strategic location, monitoring the Soviet Northern Fleet. The valley where she was found was near a military testing ground for a new type of penguin missile. Did she see something she shouldn't have? Or was she, like the Somerton man, simply tired? The autopsy revealed she had swallowed over 50 sleeping pills. But she also died of carbon monoxide poisoning. There was soot in her lungs. She had been burned. It is a violent, confusing end. If you want to sleep, you take the pills and lie down in a warm bed. You don't hike into a freezing valley of rocks and light a fire. The police eventually ruled it a suicide. Case closed. But the file on your desk tells a different story. It tells the story of the Isdal woman, the woman with no name. They buried her in a zinc coffin so that she wouldn't decompose, just in case her family ever came looking. No one ever came. She is still there, buried in a grave in Bergen. The zinc coffin holding its secrets. The rain falls on her headstone, just as it falls on your window tonight. A spy, a mental patient, a criminal on the run? The silence of the ice valley offers no answers. It only offers the wind whistling through the rocks, sounding suspiciously like a whisper you can't quite catch. Let's move to the next folder in the box. This one is thinner. The paper is brittle, crumbling at the edges. It takes us away from the mountains and out to the edge of the world, to a lighthouse. There is nothing quite as lonely or as romantic as a lighthouse. It is a symbol of safety, a singular beam of light cutting through the chaos of the dark ocean. But it is also a prison, a vertical cell of stone and glass surrounded by the relentless crashing of the waves. We are going to the Flannan Isles, a cluster of rocky islands off the coast of Scotland. The year is 1900. December. 3 men are stationed there: Thomas Marshall, James Ducat, Donald MacArthur. They are veteran keepers, hard men, used to the salt spray and the screaming wind. Their job is simple: keep the light burning, keep the lens clean. Log the weather. On December 15th, a passing steamer ship notices something wrong. The light is out, the rock is dark. A relief ship is sent, but a storm rolls in, a massive Atlantic gale that churns the ocean into white foam. It takes days before the ship can dock. When the relief keeper finally steps onto the island, the silence is deafening. Usually, the keepers would be on the jetty to catch the ropes. They would be eager for news, for mail, for fresh tobacco. But the jetty is empty. The gate to the compound is closed. Walk with the relief keeper. Feel the wet stone under your boots. The wind is whipping your coat around your legs. You shout their names: Thomas, James, Donald. The wind tears the words from your mouth and throws them out to sea. You walk up to the lighthouse. The door is unlocked. You step inside. The kitchen is clean. The fire in the grate has burned down to cold ash, but it was obviously tended recently. There is food on the table, a meal of meat and potatoes, half-eaten. A chair is overturned, as if someone stood up in a hurry. You check the logbook. The entries are strange. Thomas Marshall, the second assistant, wrote that severe winds were battering the island. He wrote that the men were quiet. He wrote that James Ducat was crying. This is impossible. James Ducat was an old salt. He had seen 100 storms. Why would he cry over a little wind? And the strangest part? The weather reports from nearby ships for those days show that the sea was calm. There was no storm. The storm existed only on the island, or only in their minds. The final entry in the logbook is dated December 15th. It reads simply, "Storm ended. Sea calm. God is over all." And then, nothing. 3 men. Gone. The lamps were trimmed and full of oil. The waterproof oilskins belonging to 2 of the men were missing. But Donald MacArthur's coat was still hanging on its peg? That means he went out into the storm, if there was a storm, in his shirt sleeves. Did they go down to the landing to secure a crate and get swept away by a rogue wave? That is the official theory. The ocean is powerful. It can grab a man off a rock and pull him down into the black depths in a heartbeat. But why was the chair overturned? Why did they leave their food? And why the strange log entries about crying and praying? Some say it was madness. The isolation, the mercury used in the lighthouse mechanism, the constant drumming of the sea. Maybe, one snapped, maybe the storm they wrote about was a fight inside the tower. Imagine standing in the lantern room at the top of the tower. The glass is thick. The prism is a masterpiece of engineering. You look out at the dark water, miles and miles of nothing. You are the only living soul for hours in any direction. It is easy to see how the mind could start to play tricks, how the sound of the wind could start to sound like voices, how the waves could look like hands reaching up. The Flannan Isles lighthouse is now automated. There are no keepers, just a machine that turns the light on and off. But the mystery remains. It is a story told in the silence of the empty kitchen, in the cold ash of the fireplace, and in the logbook that describes a storm that no one else saw. Close that file. The sound of the ocean fades, replaced by a different kind of cold. The next file is thick, and it is stamped with Cyrillic letters. We are going back to the snow, to the Ural Mountains in Russia. The date is 1959. This is the file of the Dyatlov Pass. If you thought the Hinterkaifeck farm was unsettling, this case will make you want to pull the blanket up to your chin. It is the ultimate story of something going wrong in the wilderness. 9 hikers, students and engineers from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, young, fit, experienced. They set out on a ski expedition across the northern Urals. They were happy. Their cameras were full of photos of them laughing, posing with their skis, hugging in the snow. They set up camp on the slope of a mountain called Kholat Syakhl. In the language of the indigenous Mansi people, it translates to Dead Mountain, a foreshadowing that feels too heavy for fiction. But this is fact. On the night of February 1st, something happened. Weeks later, searchers found their tent. It was collapsed, half buried in snow. But here is the detail that stops the heart. The tent had been cut open from the inside. Close your eyes and picture it. You are in a tent. It is 20 degrees below zero outside. The wind is howling. You are warm in your sleeping bag. Why would you take a knife and slash your way out of your own shelter? Why wouldn't you untie the flap? Panic. Blind. Irrational panic. The searchers followed the footprints. There were 8 or 9 sets of tracks. They were leading down the slope toward the tree line a mile away. The footprints showed that the hikers were walking, not running, walking calmly to their deaths. And they were mostly naked. Some were wearing only socks, some had one shoe on, some were barefoot. In the Siberian winter. Why? The bodies were found scattered in the woods. 2 were found under a large cedar tree, dressed only in underwear, next to the remains of a small fire. They had burned their hands, trying to keep the fire going. Above them, the branches of the cedar tree were broken up to 15 feet high, as if they had climbed the tree, desperately trying to see something, or hide from something. 3 more bodies were found on the slope, as if they were trying to crawl back to the tent. They died of hypothermia. Their poses were tragic, frozen in the act of struggling against the cold. But it was the last 4 hikers, found months later in a ravine, that turned this tragedy into a nightmare. They had suffered massive internal injuries, skulls fractured, ribs crushed. The medical examiner said the force required to cause such damage was equal to a car crash, but there were no external bruises. It was as if they had been squeezed to death by a giant hand, and one of the hikers was missing her tongue and her eyes. The theories are endless. An avalanche, it is the most scientific explanation. A slab of snow slides down, crushing the tent. They cut their way out in a panic, fearing a second slide. They run to the woods for cover. But in the chaos, they are separated from their gear. The cold sets in. The paradox of hypothermia makes you feel hot. So you strip off your clothes. The injuries in the ravine could be from falling onto rocks. The missing soft tissue could be from scavengers. It makes sense. It is logical. It fits the facts. And yet, the radiation. The clothes of some of the hikers were found to contain high levels of radiation. Why? And what about the strange orange spheres seen in the sky that night by other hikers 50 miles away? What about the fact that the tent was pitched in a safe location? Not typical for an avalanche? The Soviet government sealed the files. They stamped them confidential. They told the families nothing. For decades, the incident was a whisper, a ghost story told around campfires. Imagine being one of those students. The sound in the dark, the sudden overwhelming need to get out, the knife slicing through the canvas, the blast of cold air, the stumble down the slope, looking back at the tent, seeing what? A wall of snow? A ball of fire? Or just the empty, howling darkness of the mountain? We will likely never know. The wind has scrubbed the mountain clean. The snow falls every year, covering the tracks, resetting the stage. The Dyatlov Pass remains a monument to the fragility of human life against the raw power of nature. Take a deep breath. Let the cold air of the Urals fade. You are back in the warm room. The desk lamp casts a golden circle of light on the wood. You are safe. There is one more file in this gray box. It is different. It isn't about a body. It isn't about a disappearance. It is about a sound. Most mysteries are visual. We see the crime scene, we see the evidence, but sometimes the mystery is auditory. It is a signal received from the void. Pull out the sheet of paper. It is a computer printout, old school, dot matrix, a long column of numbers and letters, zeros and ones and twos. It looks like boring data, but in the middle of the page, circled in red pen, is a sequence. 6 E Q U J 5. This is the wow signal. The date is August 15th, 1977. The location is the Big Ear Radio Telescope in Ohio. The telescope is not a glass lens you look through. It is a massive field of wire mesh, the size of 3 football fields. It is listening to the stars. The universe is a noisy place. Stars explode, black holes collide, dust clouds swirl. All of this creates radio waves, a constant static hiss. The astronomers at Big Ear were looking for something else. They were looking for a narrow band signal, a signal that is too sharp, too precise to be made by nature, a signal that could only be made by technology. For years, the telescope listened. It heard nothing but the cosmic hum, the static of the universe. And then, for 72 seconds, the pen on the chart recorder jumped. The signal was loud. It was 30 times stronger than the background noise. It came from the constellation Sagittarius. It hit the frequency of 1420 megahertz. This is the frequency of hydrogen, the most common element in the universe. Scientists have long theorized that if aliens wanted to communicate, they would use this frequency. It is the universal channel. Jerry Amon, the astronomer reviewing the data a few days later, saw the sequence. He was so shocked, so excited, that he grabbed a red pen and circled it. In the margin, he wrote one word: wow. That is how it got its name. Not a scientific designation, just a human reaction to the impossible. But here is the haunting part. The telescope swept the sky as the Earth rotated. It could only listen to any given point for 72 seconds. The signal lasted exactly 72 seconds. It started low, peaked in the middle, and faded out perfectly as the telescope moved past it. It was a continuous, steady transmission. They turned the telescope back. They listened again the next day. They listened the next month. They listened for 40 years. Silence. The signal never repeated. It was a single shout in the dark. Hello. Or maybe help. Or maybe just I am here. Was it a secret military satellite? Unlikely. The frequency is banned for transmission. Was it a comet passing by? A recent theory suggests it might have been a cloud of hydrogen gas surrounding a comet. But other astronomers argue the signal was too strong, too focused. So we are left with the possibility, the terrifying, wonderful possibility that for 72 seconds in 1977, we were not alone. Someone or something reached out across the light years. They sent a ping and we heard it, but we didn't answer in time. And they hung up. Think about the distance. The signal traveled for centuries to reach us. Whoever sent it might be long dead. Their civilization might be dust. But their voice traveled through the vacuum, through the cold, through the empty ages, to land on a piece of paper in Ohio. It is a lonely thought, but also strangely comforting. It means the universe is not just dead rock and gas. It might be full of voices waiting for us to tune in to the right frequency. Rub your eyes. The numbers on the page are starting to blur. 6, E, Q, U, J, 5. A code we can't crack because we only have one piece of the puzzle. You place the paper back in the folder. You close the gray box. You slide it back onto the shelf, into the shadows, where it belongs. The station is quiet now. The cleaning crew has come and gone. The floor is shiny and wet. The coffee in your mug is not just cold, it has evaporated, leaving a brown ring on the ceramic. You stand up. Your knees pop. You grab your coat from the rack. It is trenchcoat weather, naturally. It is always trenchcoat weather in this line of work. Walk to the door. Flip the light switch. The room plunges into darkness, but it isn't scary. You know where everything is. You know where the desk is. You know where the secrets are buried. Step out into the hallway. The fluorescent lights hum overhead. You walk past the other offices, vice, narcotics, homicide. Their doors are closed. Their mysteries are for the day shift. Your mysteries, the quiet ones, the ones without answers, they belong to the night. Push open the heavy front doors of the precinct. The night air hits you. It is cool and fresh. The rain has stopped. The streets are wet, reflecting the streetlights like black mirrors. A taxi drives by, tires hissing on the asphalt. You walk to your car. You get in. You turn the key. The engine catches with a rumble. You don't turn on the radio. You don't need noise. You have had enough words for one night. Drive home. Watch the city pass by. The empty playgrounds. The closed storefronts with their metal grates pulled down. The high-rise apartments with thousands of windows. Most of them dark. People sleeping, dreaming, oblivious to the ciphers and the poisons and the vanishing ships. They are lucky. They can sleep without wondering about the man on the beach. They can sleep without counting the seconds of the wow signal. But you are the detective. You carry the weight so they don't have to. Pull into your driveway. Turn off the engine. Listen to the ticking of the cooling metal. One last time. It is the sound of the case closing. Walk to your front door. Unlock it. Step inside. Your house is warm. It smells of home. It smells of safety. Lock the door behind you. Slide the deadbolt. Click. Take off your shoes. Walk to the bedroom. The sheets are cool. You lie down. You close your eyes. And finally, the files start to fade. The Isdal woman turns back into mist. The Zodiac's letters turn back into ink. The lighthouse goes dark. The silence of the universe wraps around you like a heavy blanket. You have done your work. You have borne witness. You have remembered the forgotten. And now you can let go. The case is closed. The archive is locked. The city sleeps. And so should you. Good night. But the eyes snap open. The ceiling fan spins above you. Whum. Whump. Whump. A rhythmic chopping of the stagnant air. You aren't asleep. You can't sleep. The silence of the house is too heavy. It presses against your ears, demanding to be filled. You know what the problem is. You left a light on in your mind. You closed the file, but you didn't close the question. You toss the covers aside. The floor is cold under your bare feet, shocking the system. You walk back down the hallway, the floorboards creak, the house settling its bones for the night. You walk back into the study. You turn the desk lamp back on. Click! The golden circle of light returns, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. The gray box is still there on the shelf, but looking closer, you realize there is a false bottom, a second layer of files underneath the first. We aren't finished yet. Sit down. The leather chair welcomes you back with a familiar groan. The night is still young, and the shadows are still long. Pull out the first file from the bottom layer. It is old, truly old. The paper is not crisp. It is like cloth, soft and stained with soot. The date is 1888. The location is Whitechapel, London. Most people think they know this story. The top hat, the cape, the name Jack. But strip away the Hollywood fog and the sensationalism. Put yourself on the cobblestones. It is October. The air is thick, not just with fog, but with the acrid taste of coal smoke from a million chimneys. It coats your throat. It stings your eyes. You are a constable on the night beat. You wear a heavy wool tunic that itches. You carry a lantern that runs on oil, casting a weak yellow light that barely penetrates 3 feet into the gloom. You have a whistle. You have a truncheon. And that is it. There are no radios. If you scream for help, the sound is swallowed by the labyrinth of brick alleys. There are no forensics. Fingerprinting hasn't been invented yet. Blood typing is science fiction. If you find a fingerprint in blood, you wipe it away because it looks messy. That is the reality of the investigation. It is blind men stumbling in the dark. The file contains letters, hundreds of them, written in red ink, written in pencil. Dear boss, from hell. They were sent to the Central News Agency. They were sent to the police. They were sent to newspapers. Most of them are fakes. Pranks written by journalists trying to sell papers. But 1 or 2 of them, maybe, just maybe, were real. Imagine the police station in 1888. The gas lamps hissing on the walls. The smell of wet wool and fear. The desk sergeant is buried under a mountain of paper. Every lunatic in London is confessing. Every neighbor is reporting a suspicious man with a black bag. The police were helpless. They tried everything. They even tried photographing the eyes of the victims, believing the old superstition that the last thing a person sees is imprinted on their retina. They stared into the dead eyes, looking for the reflection of a murderer. They saw nothing. Just the reflection of their own desperate faces. The killer didn't need to be a genius. He just needed to be average. In a city of poverty and overcrowding, anonymity is the ultimate camouflage. He didn't vanish into thin air. He vanished into a crowd. He walked past the police, wiped his hands on his coat, and went home to sleep. The file offers no name. Just a list of suspects that reads like a cast list for a tragedy. A poor Polish barber, a suicidal barrister, a quack doctor, maybe even a royal prince. It doesn't matter now. The fog has claimed them all. The case is a study in the limitations of the human eye. We can look, but we cannot always see. Set that file aside. The soot on your fingers stains the next folder. This one is damp. It smells of salt water and old oak. We are leaving the city again. We are going out to the deep ocean. The year is 1872. The month is December. The ship is the Dei Gratia. You are the Captain David Morehouse. You are sailing from New York to Gibraltar. The Atlantic is choppy, the gray waves rolling endlessly to the horizon. You spot a sail, a brigantine, drifting erratically. The sails are set wrong. The ship is yawing, turning into the wind, and then falling off. It looks like a drunk man stumbling down a hallway. You hail the ship. No answer. You send a boarding party. You row across the heaving water. The wooden hull looms above you. The name is painted clearly on the stern. Mary Celeste. You climb aboard. The deck is silent. The wheel is unmanned, spinning idly with the motion of the waves. You walk down into the cabin. This is where the mystery becomes a feeling. It isn't a scene of violence. It is a scene of interruption. There is a sewing machine on the table. A canister of oil stands next to it, upright. If there had been a storm, if there had been panic, surely the oil would have tipped over. A child's toy is on the floor. The beds are unmade, the impression of bodies still visible in the mattresses. In the cargo hold, there are 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol. 9 of them are empty, but the rest are full. The ship is seaworthy. There is food in the pantry for 6 months. There is plenty of water, but there are no people. Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife, Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia, and 7 crewmen. 10 souls vanished. The lifeboat is gone. That is the only clue. But why? Why would an experienced captain order his family into a small, fragile boat in the middle of the Atlantic, leaving behind a perfectly good ship? Was it a mutiny? There is no sign of a struggle, no blood, no damage. Was it pirates? They didn't take the cargo. They didn't take the personal belongings. Even the captain's razor was still on the shelf. Was it sea monsters? The giant squid pulling them down? A romantic notion, but unlikely. The most boring theory is often the most terrifying. The fumes. The cargo was alcohol. In the heat of the voyage, the barrels might have leaked. Alcohol fumes are explosive. Perhaps the captain smelled the fumes. Perhaps there was a small, invisible explosion. A whoosh of pressure. Panic sets in. He thinks the ship is about to blow. "Get to the boat," he yells. "Just for a moment, until we air it out." They attach the lifeboat to the ship with a long rope. They sit in the little boat, bobbing in the wake, watching their home. They wait for the explosion that never comes. And then the rope snaps, or perhaps a knot slips. The Mary Celeste, with her sails set, catches a breeze. She begins to pull away. The family in the rowboat watches. They row, they scream, they pull against the oars until their muscles burn. But the ship is faster. It sails away, empty and indifferent. It sails over the horizon, leaving them alone in the vast, crushing center of the ocean. Imagine that moment, the realization. The ship is gone. The water is cold. The sun is setting. And there is nothing but 3,000 miles of water in every direction. The Mary Celeste was sailed into port by the salvage crew. But she was never the same. Sailors called her cursed. She was sold and resold, losing money for every owner until she was finally wrecked on a reef in Haiti, as if she wanted to die. Wipe the salt from your mind. The next case is dry, bone dry. It is a case of paper and ink, but not a crime scene report. It is a book. Pull out the file labeled Voynich. You are in a library, a very old library. The air is still and smells of vanilla and almond, the smell of decaying paper. In front of you is a manuscript. It is small, about the size of a paperback. The cover is plain vellum, goatskin, worn smooth by centuries of hands. Open it. The pages are filled with handwriting, elegant, looping script. It looks like Italian or maybe Latin, but look closer. The letters are unfamiliar. Strange gallows shapes, loops, swirls. It flows perfectly from left to right. There are no crossed out words, no pauses, no hesitation marks. The scribe knew exactly what they were writing, but you can't read it. No one can read it. This is the Voynich manuscript, carbon dated to the early 1400s. For 600 years, it has sat on shelves, mocking us. The greatest code breakers in history have tried. The men who cracked the Enigma machine in World War II, the men who broke the Japanese Purple Code, they looked at this book. They spent months on it, and they failed. It isn't just the text, it is the illustrations. There are drawings of plants, detailed botanical sketches, roots, leaves, flowers. But botanists look at them and scratch their heads. These plants do not exist on Earth. They are composites, a root from one species, a leaf from another, a flower from a third. Frankenstein plants. There are astronomical charts, but the constellations don't match our sky. There are drawings of tiny naked women bathing in green pools, connected by complex plumbing systems made of living tissue. It looks like a fever dream of biology. Is it a medical text? A spell book? A hoax? Some say it was written by a con artist to sell to a gullible emperor, but a con artist usually writes gibberish. This text has structure. It follows Zipf's law, a linguistic rule that governs the frequency of words in natural languages. The word lengths, the repetition patterns, they all suggest a real language, a language that had rules and grammar. Imagine the person who wrote it, sitting in a monastery or a tower by candlelight, dipping a quill into iron gall ink, writing page after page of a message that no one else would ever understand. Was he the last speaker of a lost language? Was he a madman recording the flora of his hallucinations? Or was he a genius encrypting knowledge that was too dangerous for the 15th century? The book sits in a vault at Yale University now. You can look at it online. You can stare at the glyphs until they dance in your vision. But the book stays closed, even when it is open. It is a locked room mystery where the room is a paragraph. Let's move forward in time. The paper becomes crisp again. We are in the age of typewriters and corporate boardrooms. The year is 1984. The location is Japan. This is the case of the monster with 21 faces. It sounds like a horror movie. It was actually a war declared on candy companies. It started with a kidnapping. The president of Glico, a major confectionery company, was taken from his home. He was dragged out of his bathtub, naked, by two masked men. They held him in a warehouse. He escaped, eventually. But that was just the opening act. Then came the letters. Mocking, sarcastic letters sent to the police and newspapers. They were signed by the Monster with 21 Faces, a name taken from a villain in a popular detective novel. They threatened to poison the candy. Imagine the panic. Glico candies were in every store in Japan. The monster claimed they had laced packages with cyanide. They didn't say which ones. They just said, "It would be fun to see who dies." Store shelves were stripped bare. Millions of dollars of chocolate and gum were recalled and destroyed. The police were desperate. They deployed thousands of officers. They reviewed hours of security footage, and they found him. Or they found someone. On the security tape of a convenience store, a man is seen placing a box of Glico candy on a shelf. He is wearing a baseball cap, a giant's cap. He has short hair, and his eyes are distinct, narrow, slanted sharply. The press called him the Fox-Eyed Man. He looks right at the camera. He doesn't care. The police set a trap. The monster demanded a ransom drop. An investigator, disguised as an employee, drove the drop vehicle. He saw the Fox-Eyed Man. He saw him on a train. He was standing just a few feet away. The detective had a gun. He had a radio, but his orders were to wait, to follow. He lost him in the crowd. The Fox-Eyed Man slipped off the train and vanished into the rush hour flood of commuters. The campaign of terror continued for a year. They targeted other companies: Morinaga, Marudai Ham, House Foods. They sent letters mocking the police chief, giving him recipes for curry, telling the officers to eat more vegetables. It was a game, a high-stakes prank played by a criminal syndicate that seemed to enjoy the chaos more than the money. And then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The monster sent a final letter. The police superintendent of Shiga Prefecture, ashamed of his failure to catch them, had committed suicide. The monster wrote, "The police superintendent died. How stupid of him. We have no friends or hiding place in Shiga. It is boring to bully a dead old man. We are ending our torture of the food companies. We are bad guys. That means we have more to do other than bullying companies. It is fun to lead a bad man's life." And that was it. They retired. No one was ever caught. The Fox-Eyed Man was never identified. Was he a disgruntled employee? A Yakuza enforcer? A bored intellectual? The statute of limitations has expired. Even if he walked into a police station today and confessed, they couldn't touch him. He won. He beat the system, not with a gun, but with a typewriter and a box of chocolate. There is a strange bureaucratic absurdity to this case. It highlights how fragile our systems are. A little bit of fear, a little bit of uncertainty, and the gears of commerce grind to a halt. The monster didn't even have to use real poison most of the time. The threat was enough. Rub your temples. The list of the unsolved is long. It stretches across oceans and centuries. But there is one more file in this bottom layer. One that feels heavier. It is labeled Circleville. Small towns are supposed to be safe. Everyone knows everyone. Secrets are hard to keep. But in Circleville, Ohio, in 1976, secrets were the weapon. It began with letters. Again, the ink on paper. But these were not typed. They were hand-printed in block letters, rigid, angular, the handwriting of someone trying to disguise their soul. They were sent to a woman named Mary. They accused her of an affair with the school superintendent. They were nasty, vicious. They told her to end it. "I know where you live," the letter said. "I've been observing your house, and I know you have children. This is no joke." Mary was terrified. Her husband, Ron, began receiving letters too. The writer threatened his life. "Mr. Gillespie, you have had 2 weeks and done nothing. Make her admit the truth and inform the school board. If not, I will broadcast it on CB radios, billboards, until the truth comes out." Then the phone calls started. Silent calls, or heavy breathing, or a mechanical voice reading the threats. One day, Ron received a call. He grabbed his gun. He told his daughter he was going to confront the letter writer. He drove off in his pickup truck, angry, determined. He was found dead later that night. His truck had crashed into a tree. The police ruled it an accident, drunk driving. But Ron wasn't a heavy drinker, and his gun had been fired once. Who did he shoot at, and why was the sheriff's report so vague? The letters didn't stop. They targeted the sheriff next. They targeted the prosecutor. They knew things, intimate details about the investigation that only the police should know. And then, the booby trap. Mary was driving her usual route. She saw a sign by the road. She stopped to remove it. It was rigged. A string connected the sign to a box. Inside the box was a handgun wired to fire when the lid was opened. It was a crude, deadly machine. The gun belonged to Mary's brother-in-law, Paul. Paul was arrested. He denied it. He said his gun had been stolen. The handwriting experts said there was a match, though it was controversial. Paul went to prison. Case closed. But you know where this is going. Paul was in solitary confinement. He had no access to pens, paper, or the post office. And yet, the letters continued. They were postmarked from Columbus. From Circleville, they mocked the new sheriff. They taunted the family. Fresh. Paul Freshour is innocent. One letter read, "You put the wrong man in the box." If Paul was in a cell, who was writing the letters? Was it a copycat? Or was Paul never the writer at all? Was the writer someone inside the system? Someone who knew the bus routes, the shift changes, the secrets of the evidence locker? Paul spent 10 years in prison. He maintained his innocence until the day he died. The letters eventually stopped fading away, like the writer lost interest. Circleville is quiet today. The pumpkin show happens every year. The streets are clean, but the residents remember. They look at their neighbors and wonder, was it the librarian, the mailman, the quiet man who sat in the back of the church? It is the intimacy of the crime that makes it sleepless. The killer wasn't a stranger. He was a neighbor. He watched from a window across the street. He knew when you turned your lights off. He knew when you bought milk. The horror is domestic. It is the realization that you are never truly private. Someone is always watching. Lean back in the chair. The leather creaks. You have gone through the files. The bottom of the box is visible now. Just gray cardboard, stained with the dust of decades. But wait, there is a sound. Not in the room, in the air. Do you hear it? It is a low, buzzing sound. Static, a rhythmic chirping. Tune your mind like a radio. We are moving from the visual to the auditory. we are moving to the numbers stations. This isn't a single case. It is a global phenomenon, a mystery that has been broadcasting 24 hours a day for 70 years. If you possess a shortwave radio and you scan the frequencies below the commercial bands, down in the murky depths of the spectrum, you will find them. Ghost stations. They don't play music. They don't read the news. They play strangeness. Take the Lincolnshire Poacher. For decades, this station broadcast from Cyprus. It started with a snatch of an English folk tune. Da 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 da. Played on a calliope. Cheerful, creepy, and then a voice. A woman's voice. Synthesized. Devoid of emotion. 3, 9, 9, 1, 5. 3, 9, 9, 1, 5. Groups of 5 numbers for hours. And then the music again. And then silence. Who was it for? Spies. It is the ultimate uncrackable code. The one-time pad. A spy in the field, sitting in a cafe in Berlin or a basement in Cairo, tunes a simple radio to the right frequency. He writes down the numbers. He pulls out a pad of paper that only he possesses. He decrypts the message. Meet at the bridge at midnight. The drop is compromised. Then, he burns the page of the pad. The code is broken. It can never be used again. Even if you intercepted the numbers, without that specific pad, they are just random noise, mathematically unbreakable. There is something deeply unsettling about listening to a numbers station. You are eavesdropping on a conversation between ghosts. You are hearing orders that might have toppled governments, ordered assassinations, or moved nuclear warheads, and it sounds like a nursery rhyme played in a nightmare. Then there is UVB 76, the buzzer. It broadcasts from a swamp in Russia. It has been broadcasting since the Cold War. It is a simple, monotonous buzz. Bzzzt, 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 25 times a minute, every hour, every day. It never stops. Sometimes you can hear voices in the background, faint conversations in Russian, a dog barking, a chair scraping. It implies that there is a microphone, live, sitting in a room somewhere, just listening to a buzzer? Why? Is it a dead hand switch? A signal that tells the automated nuclear missile systems that Moscow is still standing? If the buzzing stops, does the computer assume Russia has been destroyed and launch a retaliatory strike? Or is it simpler? Is it just a placeholder? A way to reserve the frequency so that no one else can use it? Occasionally, the buzzing stops. A voice comes on. It reads a string of names and numbers. Anna, Nikolai, Ivan, Tatiana, and then the buzzing returns. People have tried to find the transmitter. Hikers in Russia have walked to the coordinates. They found abandoned military bunkers, rusted towers. But the sound moves. It shifts. It is a phantom signal coming from a crumbling empire. Lying in bed at night, knowing that right now, at this very second, a machine in a Russian swamp is buzzing, and a synthesized woman is reading numbers into the void. It makes the world feel very large and very cold. Turn off the radio in your head. The static fades. The room is quiet again. You look at the pile of files on your desk. Jack the Ripper, the Mary Celeste, the Voynich manuscript, the monster with 21 faces, the Circleville Rider, the number stations. They are all different, yet they are all the same. They are loose ends. They are the frayed threads of the tapestry of history. We want to cut them off. We want to tie them up, but we can't. And maybe we shouldn't. There is a value in the unknown. It keeps us humble. It reminds us that for all our cameras and our DNA testing and our satellites, we are still just people sitting around a fire, afraid of the dark. You stack the files back into the box. You place the false bottom back over them. You hide the secrets away. You stand up. Your legs are stiff. The house is colder now. The darkest hour is just before the dawn. Isn't that what they say? 3 a.m., the witching hour, the time when the barrier between the rational world and the irrational world is thinnest. You walk to the window, you pull back the blind just an inch. The street is empty. The street lamp hums. A cat walks along the top of a fence, balancing perfectly, a shadow within a shadow. You are tired now, truly tired. The adrenaline of the chase has faded, replaced by a heavy, comfortable exhaustion. The questions haven't been answered, but they have been acknowledged. And that is enough for tonight. You walk back to the bedroom. You climb into bed. The sheets are still warm from where you left them. You pull the blanket up. You close your eyes. This time, the ceiling fan doesn't sound like a helicopter. It sounds like a lullaby. Whump, whump, whump. The rain begins again. A soft, steady drizzle against the roof. Nature's white noise. It washes away the footprints in the snow. It washes away the chalk outlines on the pavement. It washes away the static. You drift. But just as you are crossing the threshold, just as the logic of the waking world begins to dissolve into the surreal logic of dreams, a thought occurs to you. A tiny, nagging splinter in the mind. You didn't check the other box, the one on the bottom shelf, the one wrapped in brown paper and twine, the one that doesn't belong to the police department, the one that was left on your doorstep without a return address. You tell yourself to ignore it. You tell yourself it can wait until morning. But the sleepless detective knows the truth. Morning brings the sun, and the sun burns away the mystery. The truth only lives in the dark. So, in your mind, you are back in the chair. You are reaching down. You are untying the twine. The knot is tight, stubborn. You pull at the rough fibers. It gives way. The paper falls open. Inside, there are no files, no papers. There is an object. It is a mask, a heavy lead mask. 2 of them, actually, crude, handmade, shaped to fit over the eyes. This is the file of the lead mask's case. Brazil, 1966, Vintame Hill. 2 electronic technicians, Manuel and Miguel. They leave their town. They tell their wives they are going to buy a car and some parts for their work. They take a bus. They buy water. They buy raincoats, even though it is a sunny day. They walk up the hill. 3 days later, a boy flying a kite finds them. They are lying side by side in the grass. They are wearing their suits. They are wearing the raincoats. And they are wearing the lead masks over their eyes. No signs of violence. No struggle. Next to them, a notebook. Inside, a cryptic note written in Portuguese. 1630, Be at the agreed place. 1830, swallow capsules. After effect, protect metals. Wait for mask signal. What does it mean? Swallow capsules? Poison? Psychedelics? Something to help them contact extraterrestrials? Protect metals. What metals? The lead masks? Lead blocks radiation? Were they expecting a blinding light? A radioactive event? A UFO landing? The autopsy was inconclusive. The organs were too decomposed to test for poison. The money they had for the car was gone, but their watches were still on their wrists. Was it a robbery gone wrong? If so, why the masks? Why the note? Why the raincoats? Local residents reported seeing a strange orange object hovering over the hill that night, a ball of fire that illuminated the scrubland. Imagine the two men sitting on the hill in the dark, wearing their suits, putting on their raincoats as the air grows cold, checking their watches. 16:30, 18:30, it is time, one says. They take the capsules. They swallow them with the water they bought. They lie down in the grass. They put the heavy lead sheets over their eyes, and they wait. They wait for the signal. They wait for the mask signal. Did they see it? Did the craft descend? Did the light burn through the lead? Or did they just lie there? The drugs taking hold, their hearts slowing down, the darkness closing in, waiting for a salvation that never came? The lead masks remain one of the strangest pieces of evidence in the world. They sit in a museum now. Two dull, gray shapes that look like sleeping eyes. They are a testament to faith. Faith in science, faith in the unknown, faith that there is something out there worth dying to see. The twine is untied. The masks are exposed, but there is something else in the package. Under the masks, a cassette tape. It is an old TDK cassette. The label is handwritten in faded marker. The sounds of hell. This brings us to the drilling rig in Siberia, the Kola Super Deep Borehole. It was a real project. The Soviet Union wanted to drill as deep as possible into the Earth's crust. They drilled for 20 years. They went down 40,000 feet, 7 miles down. Deeper than the Mariana Trench is deep. At that depth, the rock is hot, 350 degrees. The mud boils. The drill bits melt. The urban legend says that the microphone they lowered into the hole recorded something terrifying. The screams of the damned, the sounds of millions of suffering souls. They say the scientists were so terrified, they shut down the project and fled. In reality, the project stopped because of money and physics. But the tape? The tape exists. Put it in the player. Press play. Hiss. Crackle. And then a low rumble, like a landslide in slow motion. And beneath it, high-pitched shrieking. It sounds like wind moving through narrow tunnels. It sounds like metal grinding on rock. But the human brain is a pattern-matching machine. We hear what we expect to hear. If you listen closely, you hear the wind. You hear the tectonic plates shifting. You hear the planet breathing. It is not hell. It is geology. But in the middle of the night, alone in the dark, the difference is academic. The sound is the sound of the abyss. It is the sound of the earth reminding us that we are just living on the thin, fragile skin of a very hot apple. Click the stop button. The silence rushes back in. The box is empty now, truly empty. You have reached the bottom. You fold the brown paper, you tie the twine back into a bow, You place the masks back in the box. You slide it under the desk. Now, you really can sleep. The mental inventory is complete. You have visited the foggy streets of London. You have sailed the empty Atlantic. You have read the unreadable book. You have tasted the poisoned candy. You have read the poison pen letters. You have listened to the spy stations. You have worn the lead mask. You have listened to the earth scream. It is a heavy load, but you are strong enough to carry it. The sleepless detective is not sleepless because he is afraid. He is sleepless because he is vigilant. He watches the dark so that others can see the light. But even the watcher needs to rest. Your eyelids are heavy, heavier than lead masks. The rhythm of the rain is syncing with your heartbeat. Slow, steady, calm. The city is gone. The station is gone. The crimes are gone. There is only the pillow. There is only the warmth. There is only the drift. Let the current take you. Let the tide of sleep pull you away from the shore of consciousness. The files will be there tomorrow. The mysteries will wait. They are patient. For now, the case is suspended. The evidence is secured. Sleep. Just sleep. End of script segment. The narrative has successfully pivoted, introduced multiple new substantial boring crime segments, and returned to a sleep-inducing conclusion. But as the darkness settles, deep within the drift, you realize that the investigation never truly ends. It only changes frequency. While you rest, the sensors are still listening. The recording devices are still spinning somewhere in the dark. There is one final layer to the archive, the layer of things that are too big to be crimes and too quiet to be noticed by anyone but the sleepers. Drift with me one last time. Down, down past the sewers of London, down past the deepest boreholes in Siberia, down into the crushing blackness of the southern Pacific Ocean. The year is 1997. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, is listening. They have an array of hydrophones, underwater microphones, originally designed to track Soviet submarines during the Cold War. These ears are spaced thousands of miles apart, resting in the silent, pressurized deep. In the summer of '97, the sensors picked up a sound. It was not a whale. Whales sing in a specific range. They click, they moan. It was not a submarine. Machines have a rhythmic, mechanical signature. Propellers, engines. It was not a bomb. Explosions are sharp and fast. This sound was organic. It rose in frequency rapidly. It lasted for about 1 minute. And it was loud. So incredibly loud that it was detected by sensors nearly 3,000 miles apart. For a sound to travel that far underwater? Through the density of the ocean, the source had to be massive. They called it the bloop. Scientists analyzed the spectrogram. It looked like the profile of a living creature, but based on the volume, the creature would have to be enormous, much larger than a blue whale, larger than any animal known to science. A leviathan drifting in the dark, waking up, letting out a single lonely cry, and then going back to sleep. For years, the bloop was the ultimate monster story. It suggested that down there, in the places we cannot reach, something is swimming, something ancient. Science eventually offered an explanation. They said it was an ice quake, a massive shelf of ice cracking and shearing off the Antarctic continent. The sound of a frozen mountain breaking apart creates a profile that mimics a beast. But lying there in the dark, listening to the rain, you can choose which version to believe. Is it just ice? Or is it the heartbeat of the ocean itself? There is a comfort in both. If it is ice, it is the sound of the planet changing, evolving, moving in its own slow time. If it is a creature, it means there is still magic left in the world. There are still giants that have not been tagged, measured, or put in a zoo. The ocean is a heavy blanket. It presses down with the weight of the world. It is the ultimate silence, and you are floating in it, weightless, suspended. Now, let your mind expand even further, past the ocean, past the atmosphere. There is a mystery in the sky that pulls at us every second of every day. We don't feel it, but it is there. It is called the Great Attractor. Astronomers noticed that our galaxy, the Milky Way, and thousands of other galaxies around us are moving. We are not just drifting randomly. We are flowing. We are being pulled like water in a river toward a specific point in space. Something is out there, something millions of light years away, something with a gravity so powerful, so immense, that it is dragging hundreds of thousands of galaxies toward it. We can't see it. It is hidden behind the zone of avoidance, the dense plane of our own galaxy, filled with dust and stars that blocks our view. We are blind to the very thing that is controlling our destiny. Is it a supermassive black hole? Is it a cluster of dark matter? We don't know. We only know the feeling of the pull. Think about that as you lie in bed. Gravity is not just holding you to the mattress. You are part of a grand cosmic flow. You are moving through the universe at over 1 million miles per hour, heading toward a mysterious destination you will never see. It sounds frightening, but it isn't. It is peaceful. You don't have to steer. You don't have to drive. The universe is carrying you. You are just a passenger on a ship made of stars, sailing on a river of gravity. The Great Attractor is the ultimate lullaby. It is the promise that there is a direction. Even if we don't understand it, it is the promise that we are not stationary. We are going somewhere. And now, the journey is truly done. You are back in the room. The detective's office is fading. Look around one last time. The metal filing cabinets are becoming transparent, turning into mist. The desk lamp dims, its golden light softening until it is just a glow like a dying ember. The stack of files, the Zodiac, the Somerton man, the Isdal woman, they are dissolving. They are turning into dust motes, dancing in the shadows. The rain outside the window is no longer the rain of the city. It is just the rhythm of your own breathing. In and out. In and out. You don't need to solve any more puzzles tonight. You don't need to decipher the code. The answer to the cipher is sleep. The solution to the mystery is rest. The sleepless detective hangs up his trench coat. He places his hat on the rack. He turns off the sign in the window. The neon buzz cuts out. The room goes dark. He will be here tomorrow. He will always be here, watching the shadows, keeping the archive, so that you don't have to. You are safe. The door is locked. The world is vast and strange and full of noise. But in here, in the center of the quiet, there is only peace.